And welcome to the COMC Community Spotlight Show. Of course, it's presented by the great folks at Central Ozarks Medical Center, where your health is their mission. And today we're focusing on the importance of fathers, right? Because Father's Day is that time of the year. We celebrate that. I know it kind of takes a backseat to Mother's Day, usually, for whatever reason. But in our society, men, fathers, they've kind of been under siege for the last few decades, and it's definitely shown in our society.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, so we've got Pastor Jeff Higbie here with us today from the Calvary Assembly of God in Jefferson City, so thank you for making the trip up. He's been on the show with us several times before. So Father's Day rolls around every year. How do you and your family celebrate that?
Hey, first of all, Chris, let me say thanks for having me in your new studio. This looks fantastic.
Great,
Your team done
right?
a great job here. Really happy to be here today. And but you know, as far as Father's Day is concerned, we've been a very traditional family. You know, the way I grew up with, you know, all the kids in the family would gather together and celebrate Dad and gifts and cooking out and things like that. I carried that tradition on into my kids in my household. Now their kids are doing that, and so pretty traditional way to celebrate. Always cooking something.
Yeah, and
so,
I've had his food.
Yeah.
It is good, very
always
good.
something on the grill or in the smoker.
Oh, you're a genius with that smoker, I'll tell you that right now. So every time we get together and he brings food, it is a feast. It is greatness. Okay, so you're a pastor. You've been a pastor for how long now?
I've been an ordained minister in the Assemblies of God for 32 years, and of course was doing some pastoring before that with Children's Church, youth group, things like that. So yeah, a long time.
Kind of working your way up. How, as a pastor, how do you address Father's Day in the church?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because you know, you mentioned Mother's Day and Father's Day, and you know, the old saying goes that on Mother's Day, man, it's all about how wonderful mothers are, and then on Father's Day, the preacher gets up there and scolds them all and gives them what for and tells them how they need to be more committed and things like that. And I caught on to that several years ago, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to start trying to encourage men. I'm going to start encouraging men to be godly fathers and just godly men, and just try to bless them and encourage them and honor them on Father's Day, and that's worked really well. I think that message has come.
I think it's pretty important. It's an important message because a lot of men don't hear that. The family unit is so incredibly important in any society, certainly in American society, and that's again been under siege for a long time. Families have been broken up. What do kids want from their dads? What is important in that relationship?
Number one is time. You know, there's this great story that I've heard for years, and it's been around for a long time. It's about a dad who wakes his son up early on a Saturday morning and takes him fishing, and they're out fishing all day long, never get a single bite, don't catch any fish. They go home that evening, and they both like to put things in their journal. So the dad sits down and writes in his journal, spent the whole day fishing, never got a single bite, didn't catch nothing. It was a wasted day. The 8-year-old sits down and writes in his journal, I got to spend the whole day with my dad. Wow. Best day ever.
Wow.
So what kids really want is time.
Yeah.
Just time.
And it shows in the family structure, the damage done to families, to children, when either one of the parents isn't there, but definitely when the father isn't there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It shows how important that is. What should dads know about their kids? I mean, to kids, just spending time with the dad is important. How about the other way around?
You know, the fact of the matter is kids watch everything their parents do.
Yeah.
They may not always voice it, but your behavior around your children, your kids are learning that from very early on. They learn, you know, them boys are going to learn how to be a dad watching dad.
Yeah.
They're going to learn what that means in life and how you approach life, how you handle things. They watch their parents. You know, kids grow up with learned behavior. I mean, doesn't that just make sense?
Yeah.
What they see is what they learn, and they become very much a copy of what dad is. You know, as they're growing up. And so it's important to know that whether good or bad, we are our kids' primary influence. And so the idea is to be a good influence.
Yeah, which would explain the effeminacy that has come into the new generation of kids, because a lot of times the father isn't around. You know, their main role model is the mom, is the feminine figure. So as a pastor, You know, you kind of base everything from what the Bible says. What does the Bible say to men about being a good example? I mean, kids do pretty much mimic what their parents do, right?
You know, let me start off by saying this. Number one, you know, I'm a pastor. We already talked about that. You know, I've got all kinds of certificates on my wall and accolades, and you know, I'm a presbyter over with 22 churches in my charge, and I'm a chaplain. I'm a life coach. I've got all these accolades.
Yeah.
But husband, father, and grandfather, that's where the rubber meets the road for me. And it is so important to get a grip on the importance of that role in the life of any man, but certainly a Christian man, that we take it from a biblical perspective. With Jesus, it was all about love. We know this for a fact, and I imagine we could all agree to this, is that families are imperfect, right? Mm-hmm. Children are imperfect. There's not a perfect kid out there. They all have their issues and so on and so forth. Jesus loved people unconditionally. The best thing we can do as a dad, and in retrospect with seeing Christ and how Christ led the church, how Christ led his disciples, was unconditional love. We have to learn to love like Jesus loved. We have to learn to love our kids unconditionally. When they make mistakes, we still love them, we forgive them. Jesus taught forgiveness and the importance of forgiveness. And sometimes dads can be the hardest on their kids and demand so much out of them that they're maybe not even able to give. And we've got to learn to love. We've got to learn to forgive. We've got to learn to recognize that those kids aren't going to be perfect, and we're not perfect.
Right. I mean, nobody's perfect in the whole scenario.
Yeah.
Right. There's no such thing as a normal family.
Yeah.
From what I've seen over the years. All right. So we're talking about the importance of fathers in our society, but in any society really, as we come across Father's Day. So we'll continue this conversation with Pastor Higbie when we come back on the COMC Community Spotlight Show. Central Ozarks Medical Center, voted Missouri's best and best at the lake, is recruiting team members due to growth. Amazing employment opportunities for both medical and non-medical positions with competitive salaries and outstanding perks. For more information, go to the Careers tab at centralozarks.org. COMC for the best medical, dental, and behavioral health care. Join a leader. Join our team. COMC, where your health is our mission. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, Lake TV's got it all. We think it's hot stuff when things cool down. We spring into action when things start warming up. Of course, summer is one big, huge shootout on Lake TV. And we fall in love all over again when autumn rolls around. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, Lake TV's got it all. Welcome back to the COMC Community Spotlight Show. We are talking about the importance of fathers. Our friend Pastor Jeff Higbie with us. I get your name wrong almost every time you're on the show.
I don't know why. We've been hanging out for a couple of years
I
now.
know. I don't know what it is. So we're talking about the importance of fathers. You're a father. I'm a father. Everybody's flawed in the family relationship, right? And so we're all going to make mistakes. You got to give yourself grace sometimes. But you've got to learn as you grow and become better as a parent. According to the Bible, Jesus never married. He never had kids, right? So we use him as an example for so much as Christians, Jesus. How was he an example as a father over Father's Day if he never had kids?
Yeah. Again, for me, it comes down to his demonstration of patience, forgiveness, and love. He just constantly demonstrated that. He was dealing with people that could be unruly. He was dealing with people that were just unlearned. He was dealing with people that had just completely different perspectives in mind, and many times selfish perspectives in mind. And yet Jesus continued to show patience and love. And I got to tell you, for me as a father, especially a guy who does 3 jobs most of the time and is a very busy person. Patience is hard sometimes for us because we want everything right now the way we want it and so on, and we get frustrated when it doesn't come that easy. And we just got to learn as fathers to be patient and loving.
Yeah, and that can be the hard part sometimes. I mean, usually people that have kids are fairly young, right? Because you have to be stupid to have kids. You know, you haven't learned yet that that's a lot of work. But then they're working, they're trying to survive, they're trying to pay a mortgage and buy food, and they've got kids. That's a lot of things happening at once.
Yeah, it is.
So it's tough to have patience. And it seems like, and we kind of mentioned this earlier, culture today seems to be kind of at war against men, against masculinity. And that's become obvious. What do you say to that?
Well, first thing, in Christianity, in the scriptures, Christian people, Christian men are called to be humble. They're called to be meek, all right? But meekness doesn't mean weakness.
Right.
You know, there's this wonderful story in John chapter 2 where Jesus and some of his family and some of his disciples, they're all coming into the temple courts together. And Jesus looks around when he gets in there and he sees all the money changer tables set up. He sees animals in there. They're selling animals for sacrifice. The money changers are changing money from one nation to another. They're cheating people. And Jesus sees this and he gets really upset by what he sees. And he doesn't just fly into a rage of any kind. He takes his time, he purposely gets some cords. I don't know where he gets the cords, but he gets these cords and he fashions a whip out of these cords.
Kind of
and
puts the whip together.
Goes out there and he turns over the money changer tables and he takes this whip and he drives them all out and he says, "My house shall be called a house of prayer and you've made it a den of thieves." You know, that in that story, it doesn't say anything about the disciples helping. Right. It doesn't say anything about his brothers jumping in on the fight. It says this one man, Jesus, took a whip and drove a bunch of other people out of the temple courts because of what he was seeing. Men need to be courageous. Men need to be strong. I'll just tell you the truth. This culture is trying to turn men into a bunch of sissies. Yeah. And trying to get families to raise their children to be a bunch of sissies. And I got to tell you, when that happens, it just changes the dynamic of our nation. What happens when this takes place is, number one, our enemies won't fear us.
Right.
Number two, our youth will not honor us. And number three, our wives will not respect us.
Interesting.
And it is biblical that all three of those things happen. That our enemies should recognize the power of a godly nation and fear us, that our children should honor us, and that our wives should respect us.
And really, in a lot of ways, that begins and ends with the fathers, with the men in the family.
Absolutely, it does.
Right? There's an amazing figure I heard out there, and this is a few years ago, so the numbers might have changed a little bit, but if the father is a believer in God, then like 87% of the time, the rest of their family believes God as well. When the mother is a believer and the father is not, that number falls dramatically. Yeah. And I don't remember what that number was, but it was about 40%, something like that.
Yeah, well, I think it goes, if a child gets saved, about 14% of the time, the whole rest of the family comes to church and gets saved. If the mother gets saved, it's only like 30-some% of the rest of the time, the rest of the family come in and get saved. But if the father gets saved, 87% of the time, the whole rest of the family comes in and becomes believers and followers.
That's amazing. That was one of the things, not to get political, that a former administration did, like in the Army, was they were very pro-transsexuals in the Army, and then another administration comes in and they're like, wait a minute, we're supposed to be war fighters here. Let's get rid of that. Let's become real fighters. And so there's a real struggle going on there in the country. There is. Okay, so your church is in Jefferson City. Mm-hmm. It is the Calvary Assembly of God. How can folks get information on that?
Best way, our website is calvaryagjc.com, or Facebook. We do a lot of live streaming on Facebook and things like that. And looking for us on Facebook, the best way to put it in is Calvary Assembly of God Church, Jefferson City, Missouri, because there's a lot of Calvary Assembly of God.
That's for sure.
Jefferson City, Missouri, and you'll be able to find our church site there.
He's our friend, Jeff Higbie. Thank you, sir.
Love you, man. Appreciate you.
God bless you, and thank you so much for joining us for Lake TV's Community Spotlight Show.